Welcome everyone to another episode of Exploring Concept Art. This time we're going to be looking at the use of silhouettes for creating character designs, either for video games or for film. Silhouettes have been used for a while now in concept art, primarily as a way of sort of getting ideas about anatomy or the anatomy of what you're creating. And exploring shapes. It relies partly, if not all, on a strange phenomena called pareidolia. For those not familiar with the word pareidolia, it's a psychological phenomena involving stimulus, could either be an image or a sound, wherein the mind perceives a familiar pattern of something where none actually exists. So it's your mind wants to look for familiar shapes within objects. I do believe the artist Salvador Dali used this method a lot within his paintings. He lived near some coastal region, unless I'm to be corrected, but I think he lived somewhere near some coastal region, and the rocks around that coastal region used to remind him of faces. And indeed, I did see a documentary where they went back to the place of his birth and they saw these rocks, and they were as he depicted them in his paintings. So yeah, so it's kind of based around that, and the other aspect of it is just a way to have some fun and play around with ideas, arrive at solutions that you otherwise would not have arrived at. Without further ado, let's get straight into it. So, as you'll see, I've got I've just started working on a document where I'm just playing around with shapes. I'm warming up, drawing circles, making brush strokes, just making sure that everything's kind of working okay. All objects are generally comprised of geometric shapes when you're drawing, and so it's always a good idea, good practice, just to kind of play around drawing geometric shapes. Trying out bits of shading, maybe even indulging in drawing things in perspectives, so drawing spheres, drawing cubes, and pyramids, and just having a look at sort of light and shading. Now, we're not going to be going into sort of shading in particular, but it's just a good idea, good practice, just to have a bit of a doodle, play around, and warm the hands up. Yeah, so like a musician would warm the hands. This is what you're looking to do. You're looking to kind of warm your hands up and just kind of strengthen the muscles and sort of get used to just sort of drawing things broadly and more specifically. And that's pretty much it, really. So usually I'll sort of spend 5 to 10 minutes just doing this, just having a doodle, playing around, not really drawing anything in particular. It's just kind of like abstract shapes, things like that. Again, if you just kind of, just getting used to kind of, using these tools, but also just getting into concept art, it's good just to have a play without purpose. Yeah, so just playing without purpose. And once you do this, once you just kind of play without purpose, it then leads to essentially practice. So both are the same in a sense. So that's pretty much it. We're going to come now to the next stage. So as you'll see, I've already made a start on creating some silhouettes. So just started kind of blocking some things in and putting a bit of detail in there. No particular ideas when I start off. It's only kind of when I arrive at the shape that then the image comes, the name of the image comes to mind. So I've got a kind of warrior and a kind of giant. Again, there's no real idea behind them. It's just, again, sort of choosing these kind of archetypal figures and just seeing where they take you. Just see where they take you. Don't really have a particular purpose. This is something I'll say time and time again in my tutorials. There's a lot to be said with just kind of drawing without purpose to a certain extent, not necessarily having an aim. You have to have a kind of cursory eye on when you're sort of creating images, but at the same time you've got to kind of have a play. So as you can see here, so I'm starting on a third one, and again, no real kind of purpose. I've just sort of started with the block. I am kind of thinking it's going to be something possibly with 2 arms and 2 legs, but apart from that, it's fairly open. So I kind of let the brush take me. This is what I do. I let the brush take me where it will. So it's almost as if you put the brush in charge and just see where it goes. See what kind of bubbles up in your mind through the shapes, and it's only through the shapes then that your imagination starts to kind of like sort of kick in. So it is this kind of symbiosis of doing things and at the same time your imagination feeding on those things, and then it kind of works back and forth. The imagination then sort of feeds the movement feeds the imagination, and so on and so forth. So you kind of create this kind of, in a sense, a kind of Mobius strip in your mind of ideas generation and doing, which then leads to ideas generation. So yeah, so just kind of use a combination of the brush and a smudge tool. These are a couple of my favourite things within Photoshop. And I put a character there, and I put like a staff in the hand. Again, I wasn't entirely sure where this was going. I was just sort of looking at it in terms of, okay, so it's some kind of character. I put this kind of space helmet on them. Again, I really wasn't thinking too much about where that was going to go. I guess I was thinking sort of nomad possibly, or some kind of nomad on some planet where he kind of can't breathe the air, so he's kind of got this space helmet on there, but at the same time he has this kind of shawl on, you know, a kind of cloak or something or other. Possibly has some kind of spacesuit on underneath, or some body armor or something or other. So these are the kind of things that are flying through my mind when I'm creating these things. So although when you're drawing, and I'm sure some of you have experienced this, you know, when you're drawing, your imagination is also kind of running parallel to this in the kind of timeline of you drawing and coming up with ideas. That there's a separate sort of timeline where you've got some form of kind of narrative going on in the background. So yeah, so just drawing. Another couple of things just I've not mentioned already. Backgrounds. Whenever you're drawing in Photoshop, try and include a background. I've put like a sort of paper texture on the back of this. It just, I don't know about anyone else, but I just find it quite inspiring putting some kind of textured image on the background. Try and avoid just using blank white backgrounds. Try to use textured backgrounds. It could be paper, you could use the gradient tool. I think I used that in a previous tutorial. But something apart from blank. Okay, it's almost like a standard art school kind of method. There are many art tutors at colleges and universities who used to kind of get the students to kind of mess up the paper, mess up the background. In some cases actually put the paper on the floor and actually tread on it and mess around with it, you know, just so it didn't look so perfect. When you're sort of confronted with a sort of perfect sheet, it can be a bit intimidating. You're kind of thinking, where do I start, what do I do? And you can get a little bit precious with your drawing, with your painting. So in a way, it's a way of making things less precious. Stop thinking about, oh, this is, you know, this work is going to be seen, so therefore I've got to make it as perfect as possible. I've got to make it absolutely brilliant. It really doesn't help to think that way, because that's your mind getting involved. Okay, I mean that's probably a topic for another day. But the mind has its uses, but at the same time, it can become an interference. You know, and given that sort of drawing is a sort of meditative practice in one sense, when the mind gets involved, it can tend to kind of ruin things. You've always got this kind of background commentary going on about what you're doing, and it's good just to turn the volume down on the mind and just enter pure creation. Just enter pure creation and just draw, or paint. Yeah, the mind can become a nuisance, so don't really give it too much time when you're creating. Work intuitively. Just work from your subconscious. Work from your instincts. Don't over intellectualize what you're doing. Again, these are just my personal truths. Your truth might be different, but for me, I found that when my mind gets involved, it can be really annoying. And through my years of sort of drawing and painting, I don't tend to, when I kind of get into what they call the zone, which you may have heard of, the zone, that kind of place that anyone of any profession, whether even if you're doing something like sports, you get into. And this is the part where you're not really thinking. The mind kind of takes a back seat. Something else takes its place. Now, what that thing is, I don't entirely know. It's quite mysterious, but it's a kind of single-pointedness. Without getting too mystical, but it's probably more to do with the kind of focus of the mind. You're entering a kind of state of being that relegates the mind to somewhere else. So, again, so I'm moving on here with just another one. So, and again, I'm just putting these little kind of titles on there. Put alien underneath that drawing, just to give it some kind of context. This next one, I wasn't really entirely sure where it was going. Maybe a robot, maybe some kind of alien, maybe some kind of mysterious, ancient type figure. Who knows? This is part of the fun of drawing, right? You kind of set off on your course, and one of the joys of drawing, one of the joys of painting, is not knowing where you're going. It's getting lost. To a certain extent, just get lost and just see where it all takes you. Drawing with a kind of purpose sometimes does have its uses, particularly if you're an artist where, say for example, you like to do very specific photoreal paintings. I've indulged in a little bit of that in the past, working from photographs, gridding them and then painting them up literally almost like pixel per pixel, and doing them really realistic. And it kind of has its uses, and it's a nice kind of practice to do. Good for your skill, good for developing skills. When you're working at this kind of level, it's a different story. You're not really looking to call upon that. It's a lot more intuitive, and you're accessing parts of your mind that you ordinarily wouldn't access. So it's important to kind of have that journey quality with when you're doing the work. So just something to bear in mind. Don't over intellectualize it. And if it's not quite working out the way you want it to work out, just kind of have a play around. If you really feel that it's not working, then move on. One of the things you can experience when you are drawing is that you can sometimes get exhausted, particularly if you're kind of working on something and it's not quite working out. You can reach a kind of fatigue where you kind of it doesn't quite work out. Anyway, so we've got some kind of the sort of finished drawings here. I've kind of tidied up some of the figures, and you can see there I've created this mythical god with wings. So here we are. Here are the sort of finished silhouettes. I was quite kind of happy with this motley crew of characters, and again, it's something where you can start to just gently kind of work into them and see where they go. But anyway, that's pretty much it. Hope that was helpful for you. Good luck with your drawing, and have fun, and see you next time. Thanks a lot. Bye.